And next, I would like to invite Dan O'Day to come up. Dan is one of our longest tenured members at Christ Church, and he's going to share our Commitment Sunday message, or our stewardship message for the day.
Good morning. Some 30 years ago, in 1995, Betsy Fields, a distinguished journalist and dedicated member of Christ Church, agreed to write a history of our parish in honor of its 300th anniversary. This book, entitled Blessed by God, is rich with carefully researched information about the origins, growth, and development of the church itself. It reflects the ways that we as a parish have indeed been truly blessed by God, and sometimes not realized it, except by dint of the passage of time and the perspectives of history. For the past 80-plus years, I have considered this building my spiritual home. And the older I become, the more I marvel at all that has happened on this very spot. It's here where each of the 4 Christ Church buildings succeeding one another have stood. I wonder what it must have been like when Caleb Heathcote, a prominent local 17th century landowner, observing laws that prescribe some sort of formal worship in our area, arranged for this church to be Anglican. Built in 1706, it was but 50 feet long, 36 feet wide, and 20 feet high. Queen Anne gifted us that very same year with a silver chalice in recognition of our legitimacy. The church had grown and prospered. But 70 years later, in 1776, this very same plot of land was a scene of nightmarish conflict. Loyalists and patriots were enemies to the death. The church building was destroyed and the rector, Ephraim Avery, brutally murdered. There are no vestry minutes to be found for the 10 years that followed. The parish itself had virtually ceased to exist. And yet, by 1794, the spirit of Grace Church, as it was then called, had been rekindled. A second building had replaced the old, and the church had been restored. I touch upon these long ago events because they call to mind the 3 guideposts of our current stewardship campaign: rekindle, renew, and rejoice. Rekindling, renewing, and rejoicing are not automatic conclusions to difficult situations, but they seem at times to be miraculous and the result of divine intervention when we consider them in relation to the church itself. In more recent years, I recall the commitment of a wonderful parishioner by the name of Kate Laurie, whose special interest in Christian education inspired her to push for a new Sunday school building back in the 1950s. The odds against her succeeding were enormous, but she felt strongly that the gloomy undercroft in the basement of the parish hall was not a welcoming spot for teaching children, especially young ones. She was, however, a woman of very strong faith who refused to be discouraged, much less to give up. There was a campaign for funding, which some parishioners thought was a lost cause, but miracle of miracles, the goal was achieved. Once again, the church was renewed in an almost miraculous way. There have been other blessings which have strengthened the church, among them the ordination of women, which for reasons which it is now difficult to fathom, had taken long years to happen. Both Fleming Rutledge, our first female curate, and Susan Harris, our first female rector, refreshed and renewed us at just the right times when we had special need of their inspiration and leadership. Above all, each helped us to revisit and reconsider the familiar in exciting new ways, and that was most definitely a cause for rejoicing and giving thanks. These are only a few examples of the blessings that have been bestowed on Christ Church. From my perspective, however, the most special characteristic of this church is the way that it seems to generate a spirit of community among those who worship here. As with every parish, there are always differences of opinion, some of them strong. But unless I'm mistaken, those differences are generally superseded here by love for the church itself and for what it represents. It is in many ways a refuge from the difference that seems especially apparent these days. This year, as we commit to ongoing support of the church, I invite you to consider with gratitude the rich heritage of Christ Church, as well as the faith that it has continued to nourish and inspire. I know you will also remember how blessed we are that Father Matt has accepted his calling to this parish. His presence is a very special cause for rejoicing. As you depart today, you will find copies of Betsy Fields' book, Blessed by God, at that end of the parish. This was her gift to the church. If you do not already have a copy, please take one. It's an excellent read, and if you engage with it, I trust you will remember that history is not just a matter of looking backwards. Quite the contrary. As Shakespeare puts it in The Tempest, what's past is prologue. By that, I'm guessing that he meant that appreciation of the past is essential as we navigate our way through present and ultimately the future. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Dan. Next Sunday is Commitment Sunday, where we will bless our pledges and those who have made a pledge